What's up, internet? So, we're back again with this recording session. We're still talking about, our opinions on pregnancy and having kids and other possibly controversial topics. So, again, if you don't want to listen to our opinions on that type of stuff, maybe you should skip this one. See,
Sorry, that's the way it is.
my issue is, again, it's like for most people, nobody forced you to have that child. Like, you had okay, let's be
Now, I
fair
will
here.
also say to this woman, like, when it comes to things like that, because people will also mention that in this argument, they'll be like, well, I didn't know they were going to be special needs. That's obviously more. And then also there's different degrees of special needs and the severity. And it's like, yeah, that's the risk you take anytime you have a child.
Right,
That's the whole point why it's concerning.
it's
Anytime you have a
almost
child,
like
no matter how
that
many
was
kids you
always
have.
a possibility.
Right. Thank you.
It's
like
almost like you should have thought about that being a possibility before you had the child.
Right. It's like it doesn't matter. You still have to take care of it. And if you don't want to, and this is why I will never look at anybody different. It's like there's always adoption, and there's nothing wrong with that. There really isn't.
That's
And
also my thing.
Well, there's a lot with the foster care system and this, and I'm like, I'm glad you realize that. So take your time and effort and donate to your local stuff. Take care of it.
My problem is people will be like, no. People will be like, no, I don't want to give up my child. I don't want somebody else to raise my child. Okay, so if you're not going to do it and you don't want somebody else to do it, who's going to do it? Apple? I guess Apple's going to do it for you then. And what I just want to touch on a point that Dizzy made in she said that part of the blame goes to the companies that make the technology. I am under the firm belief that when it comes to the iPad baby stuff, that's not the company's fault. At all. That's strictly on the parents for letting their child have complete control over.
I will also say, yeah, in a sense where it's like, well, if you let the company realize that this is not profitable, they would stop.
No, even then, it's like, all right, in the iPad baby stuff, right? I have an iPad. A lot of adults have iPads for various different uses. So, iPads aren't the problem. I use my iPad for numerous different things, and I'm glad that I have my iPad. But I wouldn't give my iPad to a child because, one, their brain isn't developed to know what is going enough to know what's actually going on.
Let me tell you, that's the thing, especially with working with the type of kids I work with. They could be the lowest functioning, and yes, this is the proper term, so don't be at me. Mm-hmm. Lowest functioning kid cannot feed themselves, cannot make eye contact, don't know their own names, don't know how to stand, don't know how to walk even. Literally, the same type of development as a 6-month-old, if that, at almost 3 years old. Okay, and it's disheartening to see that. I understand as a parent, but God give them a phone. And they can use that like a rocket more than I could. More than I could. They know how to exit the ads more than this and more than that. I'm like, my mom with her little WhatsApp can't even do that. You're telling me this 2-year-old who doesn't even know their own name, who can't even hold a spoon, who literally won't even, you know what I mean, can do that? Yeah. That's OD. You're working on those skills and you're not working on those necessities.
That's not the company's fault at that point. That's literally just your bad parenting.
Exactly.
Which is why I said that it's, it's not the company's fault. It's more of the responsibility of the caretakers. However, I will say that, a lot of people will use those companies and corporations and stuff as a cop-out. And
I was just
there are definitely things that they could do better as developers and stuff. But still.
There are definitely.
I'm gonna sound a bit like Eminem. I'm gonna sound a bit like Eminem, but it's like, fuck them kids. This is for your kids' amusement. Like, it's not about them.
No. Watch this. I'm gonna kill this entire argument real quick. So it's like, it's almost as if Apple made an iPad, and like these companies make tablets for the most part, for adults. It's almost like cellular or mobile technology was made for adults, and parents just decided, hey, I can watch videos on my tablet. My child likes a bunch of random stuff. That's true. That happens.
Like when the internet first came out, I was like, there was nothing on there for people even in middle school. Like, right. There was nothing. It was strictly like
this like most of this technology was, when it first came about, was for adults. Like iPads. No, I want you to think about this. You have never seen an Apple commercial with a child in it, have you?
No.
I wonder why. It's almost like their products aren't made for children. Holy crap. I know. Insane concept. But like, maybe that's why children don't need an iPad. Maybe it's because, this wasn't made for them. This was made for a actual, somewhat at least, developed brain.
And you're totally right too, because like I also think, like, because my sister has also done that. She's been like, oh yeah, I'm thinking about giving so and so an iPad for Christmas, and I look at her like, and she's like, no, because because they're always using my phone. I'm like,
So
they don't go outside.
Stop.
And I'm like, and this is like I grew up messing around with my dad's laptop or computer or whatever.
Yeah, of course.
And I'd play like all the little games that were on there. Purple Place. Anybody?
Yeah.
Right. But those were also very age appropriate and not like completely and utterly corporate moderated, where we're literally exploiting children or whatever just so they can open blind boxes. I'm not gonna get into that right now. I'm not gonna get into it. You stop vibrating like a bug. All right, you have these, like, you're going out of your way to personally get this just because it's a hassle, and then two, it's like that's not, like you said, iPads are not made or designed for children, so there is no type of regulation for that whatsoever. And don't be coming into my inbox being like, oh well, my kid has the kid pad and it only allows kid YouTube. I'm like, what did I just say about exploitation and corporate messages seeded into your Paw Patrol that is police propaganda? What did I just say? Okay, like,
I don't.
The mind numbiness that these kids are watching, and it's like, listen, my cartoons when I grew up, at the very least, like I would sit there and I'm not hitting on all cartoons. Like, you have cartoons, like, I'm just gonna say Adventure Time because I think that's the most easiest cartoon that has like no type of susness to it versus other ones that I might get blacklisted for just for even listening, which is mind-boggling, but whatever. Adventure Time, where I can sit there, has that type of old feeling to it, where I can sit there and it's like, wow, I learned a message. Don't get me wrong, there are some episodes of Adventure Time that are just pure tomfoolery, which is okay though too, because again, like, it's a cartoon. It's for your kids' amusement.
Right.
But I've been like, especially when I go over to my niece and nephew's house and I sit there and I just glance at what they're watching, so I'm not even sitting there and watching it, and I'm like, what is this? Like, what is this? Yeah. Genuinely. And I'm like, you're too old to be watching this, number one. Like, this is mind-numbing. And two, it's like, I can't even explain some of the content. And it's so bad, and it's so bad that if I pulled these people out, these grown people also, pulled them out, and I'm like, yo, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, if I walked into their room mid-recording, and I was like, what are you doing? They'd be dumb embarrassed, because they know what they're doing is fucking stupid. Versus if they're watching a Powerpuff episode about eating glue, like, at the end of the day, it's like about bullying, number one, and two, it's just like, well, why are you eating glue for? You kind of deserve that. Not for nothing, but like, I love that episode.
Nah, like,
the point is, it's like, what, like, I don't know, like, the content that they're consuming is also specifically absolutely bastardly awful.
So I feel like this all just comes down to parents actually being parents. Because, so, I was, growing up, I played on my grandpa's computer, I was one of those kids that, like, knew how to use computers at the age of, like, 6.
Yeah, me too.
And, like, I'm not gonna lie, I was on YouTube watching music videos and I was also, like, I just knew how to use the internet.
Yeah, and there was no regulation when we were younger
Right,
too. Like,
there was no
nothing at all.
regulation. Right. So being someone that grew up with that experience, honey, you really think you should let your child be on the internet unattended?
You're
Like,
reminding me of something that I read that also like kind of goes into that very well. Let's see if I can find it. But carry on.
if you really think, like, you go on Instagram every day and you see the stuff you see on there, but yet you think your child is okay to be on the internet unattended?
That's for real. And think about all those videos that are like, they have all those warnings and stuff like that, and then the like really explicit, like gory stuff, like people getting hurt and things like that. And that's with you, like you as someone who has control of what you watch.
Right. What do you think is going to be popping up when a child is literally on there who literally clicks on anything and everything?
That's another thing that my boyfriend has talked to me about, that he's noticed now that he's teaching high school kids, which is still weird to me. But it's like, these kids are consuming the same exact media that we as quote unquote adults are seeing. And it's like, no wonder why these kids think that, they are allowed to do X, Y, and Z on the internet, because like they're just doing monkey see, monkey do, and then they think it's cool and they get views and likes and stuff, and it's this external validation that continues this cycle of like, okay, well, I can do this because people like it, and in turn, as a developing mind, like, I like it because now I feel validated because of whatever I'm posting and people like it.
At the point where a child has reached high school, it's too late. Like, at that point, it's too late. You've already set them up for failure. Not necessarily failure, but you've already messed up as a parent if your child is like that at that age. If your child goes onto the internet just for clout and does stupid stuff just for clout, you have failed as a parent. I'm sorry to tell you that, but you failed as a parent. And
I also agree with everything he's saying as someone who had no type of monitoring.
No, absolutely. Like, if you as a parent let your child go on the internet unattended, you failed. I'm sorry. You failed. At this point, I would say, like, earlier on, like, people that are like around early 20s, around our age, if your parents did that, they didn't necessarily fail. They definitely should have been paying attention, but they didn't necessarily fail, because I feel like the internet wasn't, I don't want to say wasn't as bad, because the internet has always been bad, because
things weren't as easily accessible. Like, there were communities and things like that, like, that are very deep. But I think also too, and this is something that I notice on like social media in particular, not like other stuff, just the internet in general, like Googling, things like that. Yeah. But for example, like, if kids are dumb, right? Like, well,
kids are dumb,
but they're not dumb in the sense that, like, they can't think for themselves at all, period. Like, don't belittle them or don't hold their hand, because you also see the effect of that as well.
No, they're just
like, they should be allowed to have the information, like, hey, this is this is the context, like, just hey, this might have violence, this might have gore, this might have this, and this, and then given the option, like, especially if they're at the age where it's like, it has these things, but I still think it should be accessible to you. Like, obviously that's at your discretion. But it's like, they should have the information, be able to think about it, And then they might come back and be like, you know what? This doesn't sound like my kind of thing. I think I might wait. Or I'll read this later.
That's
or
crazy.
whatever.
That's crazy. And
if you take the time to just be like, no, you can't have that. You're not old enough. They're going to feel patronized and they're going to go out of the way to read it and literally mentally scar themselves. And it's like, yeah, you can draw whatever conclusions you want from that, really. But it's like, if you just give them the information so that they can decide for themselves, instead of just being like, absolutely not, you at least allow them to, one, develop their decision making, and two, allow them to think for themselves. Dear God, yes, I know I'm repeating myself, but please let them think for themselves. But three, you're explaining why it's such a sensitive topic instead of just being like, no.
I just want to say, this is going to be off topic, but I just want to say everything that M has just said is applicable to so many different things. The first thing that popped up in my head that it is applicable to is sex education.
Bing bong.
And I feel like if more parents did actual real sex education instead of just relying on the schools to do it, which most of them don't even do anymore, we would have a lot less pregnancy problems in America, because people would actually have the knowledge and be like, I don't know if having a baby sounds good right now. That doesn't really sound fun. Because I feel like the main reason why like pregnancy problems happen in America is, I'm going to say specifically for America, because I don't know about the rest of the world. Most American children are not taught about anything to do with the baby making process. So it doesn't even cross their mind when, they're doing something that quite literally the only purpose of it is to have a baby, and they get shocked. And the shocked Pikachu meme when they actually, get pregnant. It's crazy.
Yeah, my sex education was literally just the teachers showing the girls how to put in a tampon, and I'm pretty sure because they separated the boys and girls, and the boys I think learned about boners ? I still don't really know to this day. I'm gonna be completely honest, but that was my sex education. And going to a Christian school, especially where everything is already incredibly taboo when it comes to anything related to your body, that shit will stick with a kid, and it'll not only make them fear intimacy in sexual ways, but it also could do the complete opposite of where there were a bunch of kids that were getting pregnant very early or getting STDs very early because nobody actually taught them.
You speaking to the choir. I'm talking my 4th grade. There were people. Yes.
Hold on. No.
4th grade. I said 4th grade. I said 4th grade. I said 4th grade. But mostly 5th grade, I will say. But it started in 4th grade. That were already doing crazy things in school too. Because like obviously you're in 4th grade. Like where are you going after school? Nowhere. You're going home because your mama made you dinner. And then you have a bedtime at 9. So don't act stupid. And then 5th grade. By 5th grade, I knew, and I'm stretching it a little because I don't remember that well, but I know it was at least 1, but I think 2 girls that like literally had to have an abortion. Or they had a miscarriage.
Aren't you like 12 in the 5th grade?
Not even, bro.
You're 11,
Not
12.
even.
Bro.
Yeah, but there were so many, and I know this as well because it wasn't getting recorded because like we didn't have phones like that back then, so but they were definitely because they would all ask to use the bathroom. They were giving head in the bathrooms.
Yuck. Another thing that I'm sorry, I really quickly just want to say.
No, go ahead.
This is something that blows my mind.
I had sex,
especially for, I would say, kids that go to religious schools, no matter how long they're in there. I have a friend whose cousin went to Christian school, high school, and college. And even when she got married and it was allowed for her to have sex because she waited till marriage and her husband, she was absolutely terrified, mortified, and she, every time like a situation would arise romantically, she would just break down. And like, it's like, that's not healthy either, guys. Come on.
That's nowhere close to healthy.
No.
What are we doing?
That's really awful. Like, I genuinely feel so bad because I didn't even think about it like that either. Like, you're just like the internalized this feeling that that you're not even affording yourself to luxuriate in it. And I will say, as someone who did actually, and every time I say this, my sister's like, really? Because I went to an absolutely awful we were literally last place in the state when it came to districts, yada yada yada. I actually had a very good health / sex education. I just lucked out because there was a health facility like that, like literally geared for education and stuff like that, near, like within walking distance of my school. So it was always a field trip once a year. And in the very beginning, when you're little, you just learn like fun things like the body and just anatomy, and it's just cool and it's whatever. But then every year you get more and more in depth until eventually you get to the age group, so about 4th grade, where everybody's hitting puberty, and then it's mostly about periods, but we're all together as a class talking about these things. And obviously you hear the giggling and the snickering, and it's like, by the time this becomes relevant within a year or two, we're mostly going to forget it, but at least it's not this complete foreign thing that I've never heard before. Because in my house too, like, I didn't talk about any about that, but thankfully I at least did get my education in school. And then also, like, I was one of the computer kids, so it would not be hard for me at all to go out of my way to look for it. But that's not the case for a lot of children, especially with language barriers. But anyway, so I had all of that. And then as I got older and then was in high school, it was only a semester, but I was also mentally scarred with images. My teacher went ahead and did that. I love her for it, though.
On God's green, I'm not sure I want to know, actually.
Oh, of the STIs and STDs?
Oh,
I don't know what
that's
it
what
is.
it was. Oh.
No. Of mentally scarred images. Yeah. I will say.
That's what
and then we watched this one movie. I think it's called Philadelphia, where it's about the AIDS crisis, which is also really, really good. We only kind of watched like half of it, but it was so good. And then we watched other stuff too as well, like about this one guy giving this girl, and it's her first time too, just really awful. And then, like, in the beginning, it like starts off very romantic and things like that, but it's these situations that people find themselves into, and they're real situations. We watched those movies too, and they were all really good. He ends up giving her either pregnant her first time or an STI or both. I don't remember.
Oof, yikes.
And she has to deal with that because I think it's like this like summer fling, like it's really romantic in the beginning, like I'm talking Nicholas Sparks type of thing. And so she decides it because she's like, no, I genuinely do love him. Like, it's okay. And it's one of those things where it's like, that's a fine decision to make. It just backfired so freaking awfully, but those are real things, which is why she was stressing. She was like, I don't care how romantic or in the moment it is or whatever. You need to be prepared because these are the things that happen. And yeah, and I was like, damn, you a baddie for that. And she kind of was, but anyway.
So I feel like, as someone who, like Dizzy, received 0 sex education growing up, and like, when I say 0, I mean to say, like, you weren't even allowed to say penis in my school without getting sent to the principal's office.
Damn, that's crazy.
You get suspended for that shit.
No, like, you would get suspended for that.
You would get suspended if your shoulders were showing, if you had patch pockets on.
Oh, yeah, we did stuff like that too.
You know what I don't understand though? Like, what is a shoulder? Like, what is a shoulder gonna? Why do shoulders need to get covered up?
It's not for the students. You know that, right? It's not for the students. It's not like, oh, your classmate. It's for the teachers.
But that's my thing. It's like, okay, first off, if you have to worry about your teachers doing some crazy stuff with their students, you need to fire that teacher. That's the first thing. Second off, why are teachers looking at children? Why are teachers looking at children like that anyways? Like, this shouldn't have to be a rule. Like,
especially the ones when I see, and I say this with whether they're a man or a woman at all, but that middle school age always makes me feel so like wiggly wobbly about the students versus the teachers, Because like you have kids that literally look like they're still in second grade, and then you have other kids that look like they're
grown people.
Yeah. And it's literally within the span of that year that they change so much.
Yeah.
I think
No. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I feel like I keep cutting you off.
It's okay.
That doesn't make it any better either, because they still have the mentality and that alone. Like, I've talked to people that are my age, and I've spoken to them, and I'm like, you literally have the mentality of a 12-year-old, and that alone just, like, completely shuts down any type of physicalness you have.
One of the other things that I will add is that, again, Tupper, he works in the school system, and he works with high school students, but it's like, in terms of, I mean, obviously not that all teachers are predators, but it's just like, if you think about it, as I'm saying to high school students, if you think about it, like, do you really want your high school teachers to be seeing your titties out and about, or like all that stuff? Like, I'm not saying that it's like you shouldn't ever be able to wear a whatever shirt that shows blah blah blah, but it's like, okay, do we have to be doing all of that?
See, that's always been my question.
I understand what you're talking about, but this is I'm also gonna pop in here as someone who got literally double D's by the end of 5th grade, and that's when I got boobs.
Mm-hmm.
There comes a time where there's like nothing you can do, and it's also the parents too. Like, for example, like when I was getting boobs, like my parents didn't do shit. It was my oldest sister that was like, bro, you need training bras, like you need a bra. And she went out of her way and she did that for me. But if she didn't, I could only imagine how I would be walking around until eventually my mom decided to notice, or my dad decided to notice and be like, yo, we have to fix that.
And I totally understand that. I'm just saying more from the perspective of, like, you know, once you're in high school, you kind of start to know
I was about
the
to say,
difference.
she was talking about
like in high school, developing body and stuff. Which, again, I totally understand your argument, because Aja was the same way. But it's like, you know.
No, I get that. I get it.
It was just
high school different. I mean middle school.
Yeah. I just think it was an interesting perspective, because obviously I have no desire to teach kids or be around high school students really at all. But it's just like,
want to be around high school students.
Yeah, it's just an interesting perspective to, like, you know, for kids at least, to hear, like, you know, not that your teachers are wanting to look at your bodies, but like, also you have to think about, like, do you want to be showing off your body to adults as well? Like,
I'll also do this though. It's like, am I showing off my body, or are you just looking at me that way because you're hypersexualizing everything?
See, that's another.
I will say, like me, they're ginormous. If I wear a tank top, it doesn't matter how high coverage the tank top is. Like, it's gonna be revealing. And every time I wear a tank top, they're like, "Wow, you're kind of showing off everything, right?" And I'm like, "Well, one, I can't hide them. I wish I could. And two, it's 80,000 degrees outside. Yes, I am wearing a tank top, because you know what? At the end of the day, you're going to look at me regardless of whether I'm wearing a t-shirt or if I'm wearing a tank top. And at this point, I'd rather choose the one that's more comfortable, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because you know why? And I remember seeing this image very distinctly, and I don't remember what it's from, so I apologize. But it's one, and it's specifically about pedophiles and what their victims were wearing, the rapists. And one of them is like a 2-year-old's outfit. And then the next one is like a hooker's outfit. And the next one is like a nun's outfit. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter.
No, it doesn't matter what you're wearing.
It doesn't matter at all. I'm just saying, like, I think, and
I know what you're talking about, because there's some middle schoolers that really be in the whole hooker fit.
Exactly. Literally, my little sister is in what grade is she even in? I don't know. She's 12.
I know what you're talking about, because that's my niece. My niece is 11, and I see her sometimes.
There are kids that are, you know, wearing push-up bras and deep cut shirts, and, like, you know, that's okay. But also, we don't have to be doing all that. And I think that also has to go hand in hand with, like, the kids and the social media stuff. Like, you know, they're seeing adults that dress like that and stuff like that, and then they think that, oh, okay, like, they get all this attention because they do this dance, or they wear this brand of clothes, or whatever it is. And again, not saying that's an excuse.
Influencer things like, oh, she's so pretty and she's so desirable. I want to be just like her. I want to dress just like her.
Exactly.
I say, but you gotta be doing that with you at your mama's house.
So I feel all right in the sense of like clothes, right?
Men too.
True.
So for the most part, I, as a male, do not how should I put this? Really understand being over sexualized. I'm not saying it doesn't
definitely
happen.
happens.
No. I'm not saying it doesn't happen to guys. It's just not nearly as prevalent as it is for women.
Yeah, that's true.
But I will say, like, as someone who in high school, if he didn't have to wear a school uniform, literally would have just pulled up to school in some basketball shorts and a t-shirt and called it a day.
Yeah.
There have definitely been times where, how should I put this?
You just say how you want to say it.
Walking around in basketball shorts sometimes gets you attention.
I understand.
And like, in the sense of what Dizzy said earlier, do you really want them to be looking at you like that? It's like, yeah, personally, no, I didn't. So, like, in the sense of why you dressing like that, sometimes I get the sense of like, well, why are you dressing like that? Like, I'm not saying you can't dress how you want to dress. Like, it's your right to wear what you want to wear as much or as little of whatever it is that you want. But you also have to recognize that if you go out in public wearing certain things, you will have people looking at you, and it might make you uncomfortable. And if it does make you uncomfortable,
you gotta learn how to fight for that, for real.
No, I was about to say, if it does make you uncomfortable, you have to do one of two things, right? You either have to get real used to feeling that uncomfortable, because if you really just don't want to change how you're dressing, and I know in a perfect world it would just be, well, people could just not be weird and not stare at you. That's not going to happen, let's be honest. Yeah. So, like, it's either you gotta get used to feeling that uncomfortable feeling until you just don't feel uncomfortable anymore, and which that's not good, or just don't wear the shirt you're wearing if you don't want the attention. And again, I'm not trying to blame any female for getting looked at for anything that has happened to them. I'm not trying to blame that on the clothes that they are wearing, because, as Em said, it's going to happen whether you're wearing a nun's outfit, whether you're wearing a freaking adult diaper, whatever.
Damn, that's crazy.
But you just have to. I'm gonna put it like this. This is how I always say things in a nice way when it comes to people and their appearance. I'm all for body positivity. I'm all for you feeling comfortable in your own skin. However, you also have to remember what you look like. I'm gonna just leave it like that.
No, I like that, and I'm not even gonna add to that because I'm gonna leave it like that too. But it's to still like continue that though. Like not adding, but just it's like you, like you said, like you have to be prepared for how you look in and outside of your house, and also, quite frankly, like I said earlier, you gotta learn how to fight. And I don't even mean physically, though I definitely mean physically. I mean physically. But I'm not just referring to physically. It's like, for example, like I said, sometimes I go to work and I don't ever dress like, for lack of a better term, a hoochie mama. I don't dress like that. I really don't. I either dress, and most people say this, I either dress like a super depressed psychologist or psych student, so you can imagine, or gay. Yeah. Anyway.
I mean, I wonder why.
But I also have huge, ginormous bazongas, unfortunately.
She did.
If I have my way though, I'll cut them off. But anyway. And at the very least, and I've had people talk to me. I've had like strange men and other people also like approach me. And now I don't want to say I don't know how to fight, because I definitely have violent tendencies that I'm very willing to exact on someone who's very willing to get on my nerves. Don't get me wrong. But also don't quote me on that in case anything comes up. Knock on wood. Okay, I did not do that. I did not put my hands on that man. I would never do that. Anyway. Okay. But I know how to take care of myself in the sense where, like, when I'm in those positions, and they inevitably happen. I live in New York, and even when I didn't, I'm gonna be all right. I'm gonna be all right. And I have a sister also who literally gets catcalled no matter where she goes, and it makes me so furious whenever I'm walking with her, because I'm angry on her behalf. Because, and when I say it's relentless, I mean it's relentless. But she just walks with her head up high, and she dresses how you might say a hoochie mama dresses, or just anybody at all. Doesn't matter, because she has her body and she likes it and she wants to show it. And my sister's freaking in her 30s. Like, who cares? But she is comfortable and she's willing to face that type of attention in order to dress the way she wants. Just how I'm willing and comfortable with dressing the way I want to dress, and also having to experience that. Everything has a pro and con.
I feel all right. I gotta get this off my chest.
And also, I like to look when it's other women.
Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on.
We're stepping into interesting territory.
So I just want to speak to the guys for a second. I need y'all to get real close to the screen.
The boys with the boom system, top down AC with the cool system.
Like, I need y'all to hear me, and hear me clearly when I say this. If you catcall a female, and let's clarify, when I say catcall, I don't mean like, try to holla at a girl. I don't mean that, because you got to shoot your shot somehow, right? There are definitely creepy ways to shoot your shot, and you need to stop doing that. But we'll talk about that at some other point. I need y'all to get real close to the screen, because I feel like we just got to be real close. If you catcall a female, I need you to go into your kitchen. Again, you can't be creepy when you do it.
Say that because someone did it to me while I was on my way to work, but we were the only people on that entire street because it was 6 a.m. And I immediately was like, ew. And I'm like, get the hint, because you're also creeping me out, because again, there are no witnesses.
No,
and he was like, don't be like that. And I'm like, first and foremost,
no, stop.
I'm about to start laughing. And I did. No. And I ruined his entire day. But it's okay, because it made mine better.
Like, all right, look. There's a time and a place for everything. If you are...
It's on 6 a.m.
Like,
in the middle of Queens.
If you... I need all of...
So much later that the old narrator got tired of waiting, and they had to hire a new one.
Something. Mm-hmm. Because now I'm riled up.
Oh, yes.
Good grief, here we go. Okay. So, not too long ago, I was in a situation where I was literally at the Goodwill, the thrift store.
Oh, no.
And this is also one of the reasons why I have a qualm with the thrift stores, because they keep taking out all of the dressing rooms. First of all. And second of all, crazy. I would like to say that now, because there are no dressing rooms, everybody in the thrift store usually will go and stand in front of a mirror and try on their clothes. And, it's not like anyone's getting actually naked, but whatever. It's still, strange to see people of all ages and genders be trying on clothes in the middle of the goddamn aisle. Anyways, I digress. I recently had done that at a Goodwill. Thought I was in a corner that, not a lot of people could see me, because I already don't like attention from anybody. And, I had leggings on, so it was even more appropriate, I felt, to slide a long skirt, maxi skirt, over my legs, try it on, take it off, go buy it. Right after I took it off, a grown man came up to me and he said, "You looked really good in that skirt." And I said, "Oh, no. And then he walked away. It didn't end there, though. I immediately felt uncomfortable, as one would, and a couple minutes later, I noticed that he had left the building. And unfortunately, I still did not feel a sense of relief because I felt in my soul that there was
you told me about this.
And I went to go check out, and I made sure to check around the store to make sure that that man wasn't still in there because I knew he was going to try and leave at the same time. And I'm standing there paying for my stuff, and I can just feel that that man is standing outside waiting for me. And he was right next to my car. Don't know how he knew, but he was there. And I walked out. He started having a conversation with me. And this is where I entered my fight or flight mode. And this is also where I'd like to bring up another point for men, especially, who have significant others that happen to be female. Never, ever blame your significant other for whatever they have to do to get out of a situation like this. Because that's some...
Is this the Krusty Krab?
No, this is Patrick.
Because when I was in that situation, all I could think about is, what could I do to make this conversation end as quickly as possible and I can get away safely? And what I ended up doing was...
That's a human trafficking thing, too.
Right.
I ended up giving him my Instagram because I did not want to give him my phone number.
Of course.
And he was relentless in making sure that he didn't leave and I didn't leave until he had some point of contact with me. So I decided, you know what? I don't even use Instagram. And even when he does make sure that I follow him back and I make sure that he is allowed to see my profile, that I can immediately block him, change my profile name, and be gone forever.
Yeah.
Easy. And then, of course, you know, one thing led to another. I did make sure plenty of times to say that I had a boyfriend. I was in a relationship with somebody that I love and enjoy, and I had no desire to go on a date, even though he continued to ask me to go on a date with him after I continued to say, I'm in a relationship. Didn't matter. Anyways, I was able to get away. I went home. I talked about it to my significant other. God bless his soul, but I don't think I've ever been more fierce in my life. And, you know, it's really annoying when something like that happens, where you're literally faced with a decision to fight or flight and run away, or get out of the situation as safely and quickly as you possibly can. To hear the words and the same stupid argument of girls that get sexually assaulted or raped, of the whole thing of like, well, what were you wearing and what were you saying? It doesn't fucking matter what you say, what you wear, what you don't say, what you don't do, what you do. It doesn't matter. If someone's going to take advantage of you, they're going to find a way to take advantage of you. Point blank, period. No. So whenever you say something like that to someone, even if you don't mean it in that way, I will personally shove my foot.
Krusty Krab, yeah. Pizza is the pizza, yeah, for you and me.
And with that, I feel like that'll be a great end to this podcast.
This, like, 2.5 hour podcast. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, we've been recording for 2.5 hours. This is gonna get cut up into like 3 different ones.
Hey, we covered a lot of good topics.
No, we did though.